Hello, we are heading up to the second portion of our application here, as we have finished so far the first portion where our customer can register on our website, and as now it's more interaction coming with the application, we should maybe focus in this movie a little bit about more robustness of this what we have implemented so far, robustness, and about security more in detail. So I went through the documentation once more of Trongate, and I have extracted once more a few points of it. I collected it in the Excel sheet, everything what I could have found which relates to robustness and safety. And I want to walk you through on here on some points which helps to make it happen in that way. Trongate offers a way to name functions with an underscore function name to add such a prefix on it, and this ensures that the method is only is callable from all classes and modules within the application, but cannot be called via the URL. So this is a thing for robustness and safety. And I haven't tested yet out, but I would guess that access modifiers given by the PHP language are still in place. The public functions are callable from everywhere. Private functions are callable from function within or derived classes, and the protected functions are callable only from functions within the same class. So this is a thing we could also have a look or take usage of it on here. Then without wanting, I read also the search engine optimization subject a little bit. On here I found also a way to make our application more robust. On here you see that the third segment is defined on here to meet a specific data type. Yeah? So if the GET request of such a URI would not meet a numeric value on here at the third position, then the site would not load up. This is our thing. It's cool. And with this is also related the URL column in the desktop app. We will have on this a closer look later. I was struggling in the first movies at the question select a URL column and so on. But on here I found for me the link to each other. As we are accepting data from the URL, there are helpers for us on here. There is this segment function which we can take use of to retrieve the first, the second, or the third segment. And this function can also take an optional parameter which converts them or check against if the given one meets the data type we expect. And it uses for this the set type function of PHP, a really handy thing to make to get rid of garbage within data which are entered by our form. I got this hint from Mr. David Corneli. Can you imagine? I have been in contact with David. Thank you, David, for this nice conversation we had this week. And then on here, also in the form validation helper for file uploads, I seen on also that allow types can be limited to some saved data types of files we want to upload. So no animated GIFs or whatever. Sooner or later, we are heading towards to speak with the database itself, and we have done it so far with the DB query method. But on here, it needs to be highlighted that this DB query method does not fulfill any protection for us. It trusts us that this what we are doing with it is right and safe. Pardon. And we should maybe change from the query method to the query bind method, which takes the underlying PDO mechanism. So these SQL things would be more protected against injections. Other methods from the model class like insert, they are using all PDO. We'll have a look later on how this is done. Now, what no framework at all can do for us is to ensure that data is usable for our application. The business logic needs to ensure that. For example, if you're asking for a birth date, yeah, so the form validation thing can check if this date is good formed, that the string meets a date, yeah, but it cannot check, for example, if the date is from the 17th century. Yeah, which does not make sense to have a customer who is over 400 years old, except Dracula want to attend a course on our side on here, then we would need maybe to make an exclamation, also an exception. Then PHP also offers, right? Because we are using PHP on here, also uses mechanisms to make the application more robust. We should take care about those and use those, and also make more tests in specific of the used data types we have and convert it in an appropriate way, so that we know which data belongs to which data type which is living through our application. And last but not least, at the end, when we are publishing our application, the server configuration is also a thing that needs to be looked at. For example, that it's enabled the secure layer of the HTTP protocol, and for example that the database user is taken down with its privileges just to the needed ones, so no drop table, whatever. So these are things which makes an application more robust and more safe. And now we will go quickly through the first part actually and try to apply a few of them to this one on here. And then we will head to the authorization and authentication thing, and maybe in between we will also write an email. Let's see how this works, just to give a confirmation to the customer. So this is the plan in this movie, and maybe also the next one. I want to thank you all so far that you are following this thing, and I'm happy if you give me feedback. And I kindly want to ask you, don't take this what I'm showing to you and how I'm doing it as this is the golden way to do it. It's not. Yeah, I'm also learning with this tool, and also get more experience with PHP itself. So it's a learning curve. From here we are walking together through. Okay, so let's head to our attendees thing on here, where we are doing the validation to speak about on here. The variable first name on here is set by something which is entered on there, and the content of this thing is checked if it's longer than 2 characters and not longer than 255 characters. But this does not mean that the content of this variable later is usable for our application, right? If it's not garbage in or whatever. As we are inserting these data on here later using the Trongate's model method insert, yeah, which uses PDO underlying, we are safe on this one. This is okay. With the email thing, we need to speak a little bit. On here, we are doing quite well as we are validating the string against a thing which looks like an email. And let's have a look how this one here is actually implemented. Let's use the validation helper. And let's have a look how this test is done. This is the method in here, run validation test, okay, and on here we'll see the implementation for valid email. Let's have a look. So on here we see that Trongate uses the PHP functions filter variable, and it provides the info, data in, and it configures it using this constant to use the set of rules to check against our email. So this is quite safe. This is fine for us on here. However, we don't know if the entered email, even if it's formed okay, really exists. But this is something we have to live now, I think, so far. Okay. One thing I have not, I didn't pay attention to it so yet is the following on here. in our form, we injected on here a hidden field course ID. But there's also an additional one. See this one, a hidden CSRF token on here. This we have created automatically as we have been using in the request form, in the register thing, the Trongate's function for close. So Trongate is adding on here by itself a CSRF token, and if Trongate receives something, it's checking against this and stripping it off again, so we don't see it in the posted values if you var dump from post. So this is an automatic thing on here. With the course ID on here, following things, this value on there is generated by our own database. So we could be thinking at the first glance that we are quite safe here, that only valid values are returned backwards. But in any case, if this would be somehow be manipulated, or even if we have skipped the CSRF token by writing a simple and own and closing tag thing on here, we would be exposed to hazard. And this course ID value on here, if we look at a courses plan on here, what we are doing is actually not good. So we trust that the form is validated, and it is validated and quite safe for the visible ones, right? But not for the invisible course ID, you see. And this we are taking on here and forming out of this, with this content, straightforward an SQL statement which operates against this column course ID in the database. And on here we are attackable, right? So what we could do is here to sanitize this and check. We can use the set type method. Thank you, David, for this hint. Excellent. Thank you. Course ID. And we can try to convert this one here to an integer value. And now we are safe. So now it's a course ID. But we don't know if the set type function succeeded to convert it to an integer. So we will ask on here the result value out of it. We can learn from PHP net website how the thing works on there, and if this function does not succeed, then it returns false, and this we can test on. So, and if it's false, then we could say dot execution as course ID seems to be weird, right? Yeah, we are stopping on here. We could also later on do in our application the following. We should stop, but we can also use this position here in the code to write a small note into a monitoring table or whatever. And if a company uses monitoring systems, this could maybe ask this table if there's some unexpected behavior is listed on, and then the sysadmin could receive an email and he could have a look what's happening on there. So he would detect if an attack has been taken against in the application. So this is one thing. So we are sure at this point, if we have survived these hurdles on here, that we have an integer value, right? And it won't harm our thing. But what would happen if in this form this thing will be manipulated to a course ID value of an ID which does not exist actually in the database? Yeah, so we are expecting 1 and 2, as these are the known courses so far. So we should also check if the course ID we are speaking on here is really existing. So what we can do, we can do here something like course ID exists, and we could ask the courses module, check if course ID exists. And we'll ask this by providing ID, and we'll put in the course ID. And as in our overview, we have seen that we can also use this prefix underline Yeah, because we don't want that from outside or from whatever this method is called, right? We will use this one here also, just to make our application more robust on here. So courses check, boom, 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 boom. And let's do on here, which is with here. This looks weird. So we can say function, and then this one here, and put in a course ID. And then we can ask the database by this model get where, and then you could say, I think I remember the second was the name of the table, and the first one was the ID. Oh, let's double check. I'm not sure if I'm remembering it correct. So this model get where free, get where ID, and this you get exactly so. And this get where function returns false if it's not found, and we can check against this false on here. If result is false, then we will answer the question if the course ID. Check if let's make check if course ID return false. If it's not existing, this course we are speaking on here, and in case it is, we return true. Let's make sure that we are using the same function name on here. Okay, check if course exists by ID. Okay, so and here again, like this. If the answer is false, then stop execution as course does not exist. Okay, so if our software is coming along to this point, then we are quite safe that this given value on here is sanitized and verified, and also from the business logic that it makes sense to use the content of this variable in our further steps on here. So so now we are safe on here, but we can do it for completion. For completeness, we could convert this one here also to the query bind method. So we need to provide this SQL in a form with placeholders. We will do this. Here. And we need to provide the data. The query bind method would take for substituting the placeholders with values. We have to provide this. Let's use params, not data. I don't know. So I don't know. We need to assign an index which names as the placeholder, and then assign value to it, user ID. We are getting the user ID on here. Yeah, here's also something what I have been thinking of. We have validated the email variable. This is fine that this one is used in this method on here. And then a thought occurred in my head, the question, can we trust the source of data? Can we trust the source? And as this one is our own module, and we know what we are doing this in this method, this source of data for this value can be trusted, right? So this is also a question. So we can use this user ID on here freely. And now let's add also the heavy checked course ID on here, and then we are safe to use this method on here. Query bind SQL params, boom, yeah, and user ID course ID, just checking course ID. I think this looks good, right? I think this looks good so far. And then in the lower part, I'm doing the same thing on here also. I'm taking the course ID. This is not good, so let's check this one here also. Maybe we could also use these two things on there. Yeah, one by one, but we need to ensure, yes, remember correctly, it's on here, that we use the same variable. So it checks if it's an integer, if not it stops, if it is, it continues, then it checks then it checks if the course ID we operate on it is really existing, and if it does, it continues, if not, it stops. Okay, so the red count as my course ID. Let's make this one here also PDO style. Let's convert this also to a placeholder. Provide the data. Course ID equals course ID. Okay. So we are here safe, right? And then we will need to use the query bind method and put in the data. Okay. Yeah, and this function on here is callable via the URL, right? So let's take also this functionality from here with this underscore, which protects us. And I think this one here is is on here in the register thing used. No, in the view courses. Yeah, course plan get amount registrants. Yeah, so let's use like this. Yeah? So this is not actually callable from outside. Let's see if we are still alive. I don't know. Let's see. Sorry, not. Undefined variable red in course plan 63. Okay. Course plan 63. Okay, a typo. Not result, return value. Okay. Okay, so this seems to be fine on here. Let's try if this one here works. Mail somebody of somewhere. Stuttgart, if this lives. Oh, okay. Main Street. This is to our copy and paste thing, course plan line 14. Yeah. So reload. Okay, so we are fine. Okay. And now we have here 3 registrants. Let's get rid of this one here. Where is this in the view courses thing? Use this in the past. So okay. So I think we are quite safe on this point, and we have taken the things what we have found out on here and applied it on the code for the section of our application we have finished last time on there. And now we are ready to go to the next step on here, because there's more interaction, and then we should have this one here finished first, and also have the knowledge how to work with data which are coming from somewhere. Okay, thank you for your interest, and see you next time. Bye.